Today's lesson is Taiwan passes new laws on regenerative medicine. Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're going to be talking about something called regenerative medicine. Okay, I know what medicine is. It's something that you take when you're sick or something. But if something's regenerative, that means it generates something again. To generate just means to produce something. So regenerative medicine refers to medicine that can be regenerated.
Oh, medicine that can be regenerated. Make you healthy all over again. So that would be wonderful. And of course, this is very new stuff. And often with new medical technology, not only are there health concerns, right? We want to make sure that new medicines that we're giving people, new vaccines we're using, are helpful and healthy to people and won't cause a lot of negative side effects or hurt the health of certain groups of people. But we also have to worry about the ethics of using new medicines and certain new types of treatment, right? We can do it. Science says we can do it. We know how to do it. But the really difficult question is, should we do it? And if we should, how should we do it? So questions like that require a lot of thought. And often the correct course of action takes some time to really figure out, right? We have to kind of use this stuff from the real world, see how people use it, see how people might abuse it or use it in bad ways, and then structure the rules and regulations and systems around that. So let's find out about some new laws being passed in Taiwan on the very important issue of regenerative medicine and regenerative medicine products. Taiwan passes new laws on regenerative medicine. On June 4th, Taiwan's Legislative Yuan passed the Regenerative Medicine Act and the Regenerative Medicine Product Act. Together, the acts create a comprehensive set of rules for the development and use of regenerative medicine, which consists of treatments aimed at repairing or replacing damaged cells and tissues to restore normal function.
大家好，第一部分介绍形容词 comprehensive， 它的意思是全面的、综合性的或是详尽的。例如 The textbook provides a comprehensive overview of world history. 这本课本对世界史提供了全面的概述。或者 The school offers a comprehensive curriculum for all grades. 该校为所有年级提供广泛的课程。接着看到 restore 这个单字，它是动词，表示修复、使恢复或是使复原。例如 Over several years, the historic building was gradually restored to its former glory. 几年来，这座历史悠久的建筑物逐渐恢复了昔日的辉煌。或是 This vacation restored Margaret's energy. 这个假期恢复了 Margaret 的精力。
All right, this happened last June, a couple of months ago. On June 4th, Taiwan's Legislative Yuan passed the Regenerative Medicine Act and the Regenerative Medicine Product Act. Okay, so the legislature was busy passing some laws in regard to the medical profession or medical treatment for people, and they've got this law, the Regenerative Medicine Act, and we've also got another piece of legislation called the Regenerative Medicine Product Act. So it has to do with regenerative medicine itself, and it also has to do with the products involved in regenerative medicine, which specifically refers to repairing or replacing damaged cells and tissues, which will restore normal function, as it says later on in this paragraph. So again, the gist of this sentence, the main focus of this paragraph is that these laws were passed last June by Taiwan's government.
All right, so passing new laws is a good thing to do, of course. As times change, we need new laws to address current challenges and issues. It says, together, the acts create a comprehensive set of rules for the development and use of regenerative medicine, which consists of treatments aimed at repairing or replacing damaged cells and tissues to restore normal function. All right, so it's a long sentence basically describing what some of these laws were doing, what the government actions resulted in. says the acts create a comprehensive set of rules for the development and use of this new technology, these new regenerative medicine products. Something that's comprehensive, it's kind of complete. It covers everything. It should address all of the different issues and all of the different features or elements of something. So basically, it's not sort of a shortened version. It's not the abbreviated version. It's the full version, right? If you get a comprehensive summary of what happened at the meeting, they don't just say, oh, we had a meeting and we made some decisions and then everyone went home. No, you'll read the minutes of the meeting. You'll get a full description, a full rundown of all the action, all the activities, and all the decisions that came out of that meeting. It will cover everything. It will be comprehensive. So this set of rules should cover everything for the development and use of regenerative medicine. We get a basic description of regenerative medicine here, which consists of, what is regenerative medicine? It consists of treatments aimed at repairing or replacing damaged cells and tissues to restore normal function. So we're repairing the body after it has gotten sick, after it has received some kind of physical damage to it. And I think a lot of these medicines also work using a lot of DNA technology. So using some of the latest research and latest information that we can gather to make some of the most specific and well-engineered drugs to help sick people and to get their bodies back to full function, get their bodies back to being healthy. You're restoring them. When you restore something, you basically bring it back to its former level or former condition. If I have an old house that hasn't had any love or attention or care, or even someone fixed the leaky roof for many years, there's going to be a lot of damage. And if I want to keep that house standing, if I don't want to just go in and knock it down, I'm going to have to fix the house up. I'm going to have to restore the house, replace the broken bits, and bring it back to just like new, or as close to new as possible. So that's what these drugs aim to do with people and their health. Let's have a look at the second part of the article, then we'll come back to talk about it. Under the new laws, regenerative medicine treatments must generally be subjected to human trials before they can be given to patients. However, there are exceptions for compassionate use cases. For example, patients with life-threatening conditions who have no other effective treatment options will be allowed to receive regenerative medicine treatments. Meanwhile, the laws ban the use of embryos or embryonic stem cells in regenerative medicine studies. In addition, they make it illegal for non-medical facilities to practice regenerative medicine. Any non-medical facility that provides or advertises such treatments would face the possibility of significant fines.
第二部分看到名词 exception， 它的意思是除外或是例外的人事物。例如 It's usually cold in my hometown, but today is an exception. 我的家乡通常很冷，但今天是个例外。也可以说 Warren was the one exception in his class, for all of the other students failed the test. Warren 是他班上唯一的例外，因为其他学生都没有通过考试。再来介绍名词 option， 表示选择或是选项。我们可以说 Working from home is an option for most people at Billy's company. 在 Billy 的公司，大多数人都有居家工作的选项。又或者说 When Mike's computer crashed, his only option was to write the essay again. 当 Mike 的电脑故障时，他唯一的选择就是重新写论文。接着看到动词 ban， 它的意思是禁止或是取缔。例如 The school decided to ban cell phone use during class hours. 校方决定禁止课堂期间使用手机。又或者说 The government has decided to ban smoking in all public areas. 该政府已决定在所有公共场所禁烟。再来我们看到 facility 这个单字，它是名词，指的是供特定用途的机构、场所，也可以是设施的意思。举例来说 The university's new sports facility offers advanced training equipment to help athletes compete at their best. 那间大学新的体育设施提供先进的训练设备，好帮助运动员发挥最好的状态。又或者说The worker was rushed to a medical facility to treat her injuries. 那名工人被火速送到医疗机构治疗伤势。
All right. right, let's talk specifically about these new laws. Under the new laws, or concerning the new laws, regenerative medicine treatments must generally be subjected to human trials before they can be given to patients. So generally, these particular treatments must be subjected to human trials. Okay, so when you're developing a medicine or when you're developing a drug, you need to test it to see if it works or not, and you need to make changes as you test it. A lot of times they test these medicines on animals like mice or whatever, but in this particular case, they're requiring it to be tested on humans. So it needs to be subjected to human trials. If you're subjected to something, you undergo that treatment or you have this particular situation happen to you. So basically, they need to undergo human trials. They need to have these human trials or tests on humans before they can be given to patients. So they need to make sure that these medicines work on people before they can actually be used on actual patients.
And of course, this is something that is done with all drugs, right? Drugs go through many, many years of trials, both in the lab and then in human patients, in order to make sure that they're safe before they're allowed to be used widely and sold widely on the market. However, it says here, but, there's a big but here. However, there are exceptions for compassionate use cases. So there will be exception. An exception is basically someone who the rule doesn't apply to or someone who we won't enforce the rule on. All right. So, for example, you're not allowed to drive your car too fast in the city. If you're speeding down the road, the police might see you and they might stop you. Well, they will stop you, or they should stop you and give you a ticket. But let's say you're like in the movie, that stressed out husband driving his pregnant wife to the hospital and she's in the back having the baby in the car. There might be an exception there. If you go speeding, if the police catch you, they might not give you that ticket. They might say, oh, this is a very special case. An emergency situation will not only not give you the ticket, we're actually going to help you drive faster to the hospital with our cars or something. So that would be an exception, a way or an area or a time when the rules are not applied, when the laws are not put in effect. And this would be, for example, if someone has a very rare form of cancer and they're still doing tests on a cancer drug, but this cancer drug could help this person. Let's say it's a young child and they have some rare form of brain cancer. We're doing tests on a drug that could treat them in the future, but right now it's not available. Well, that might be an exception. That would be a compassionate use case. We're taking compassion, we're taking sympathy, we're being kind to this young patient and their family, and we're allowing them to sort of take the test drug now, even though we haven't fully approved it. So that kind of idea would allow for exceptions, times or places or situations where the laws are not applied.
Right, so what is an exception for a compassionate use case? Well, for example, patients with life-threatening conditions who have no other effective treatment options will be allowed to receive regenerative medicine treatments. Okay, so that's the exception, or that's the example of compassionate use cases. We've got patients with life-threatening conditions. If something's life-threatening, that means you might die very soon. You might have some sort of condition, some sort of disease that is going to kill you within a couple of days or a couple of weeks or whatever, unless you receive immediate treatment. So if it looks like this particular medicine could help this person survive and not have to die, then this is an exception. They will use the medicine in this particular case because it's a patient with a life-threatening condition, and they may not have other effective treatment options. An option is a choice. Maybe the doctor has tried everything. The patient has had all sorts of separate opinions or different opinions from different doctors, and there just is nothing left. They've tried everything. This is the last resort. This is the only thing left to try.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, as we go on, it says the laws ban the use of embryos or embryonic stem cells in regenerative medicine studies. So this is something that they will not allow. There will probably be no exceptions for this. If you ban something, you basically say it's not allowed, it's not approved, you can't do this anymore. Smoking has been banned in most buildings around the world, or at least in Taiwan these days, right? You can't smoke. There's a ban. It's prohibited. There is a rule against it. So there's a rule or a law against the use of embryos or embryonic stem cells in regenerative medicine studies. Using embryos, using humans, they're not fully developed humans as they would be in the womb womb of a mother before the child is born. That is very controversial, and so that's something that they're just going to avoid by saying you can't do this. You can't use human embryos or stem cells, DNA taken from human embryos in the research and in the studies and in the manufacture of these regenerative medicines. In addition, it says they make it illegal for non-medical facilities to practice regenerative medicine. So they're not going to allow clinics or spas or places like that to use some of this technology or use these drugs. That is going to be illegal. So non-medical facilities, non-medical meaning not a clinic, not a hospital, not an approved medical place. And a facility, that's just basically a place where people can go to get some kind of help, to get some kind of service, to use some kind of resource. Educational facilities, schools, universities, preschools, kindergartens, those are all educational facilities. Transportation facilities, train stations, bus stations, airports, MRT lines, just basically things that have been built up in a way to allow people to access services and products in a convenient way.
Right. So again, using these drugs is illegal in non-medical facilities, and so they cannot practice regenerative medicine. And any non-medical facility that provides or advertises such treatments would face the possibility of significant fines. So if you are a spa, for example, and you tell your customers or in your advertisements you say that you're offering regenerative treatments, well, this particular facility, this spa or whatever, could have a fine. The government would charge you a lot of money as a punishment for using those treatments or using those drugs. So basically, again, they are restricting the use of these medicines to medical facilities, to hospitals, maybe some clinics or something. But yeah, definitely non-medical facilities like a spa or some other kind of place.
Yeah, so regenerative medicine won't be replacing Botox or plastic surgery or anything like that anytime soon. But for really sick people in the hospital, this could be a lifesaver, literally a lifesaver. All right, let's check out the final part of the article. On balance, the acts seek to provide effective control over regenerative treatments to ensure their safe and moral use. However, a number of questions remain about how specific requirements of the acts will be enforced in practice.
第三部分看到动词 enforce， 它表示强制执行、实施法律、规定等。我们可以说 The new school principal enforces all of the rules. 新校长强制执行了所有规范。最后一个例子 The no camera rule was heavily enforced during the concert. 演唱会期间严格执行禁止拍照摄影的规定。
Okay, on balance, it says here in the final paragraph, the acts seek to provide effective control over regenerative treatments to ensure their safe and moral use. Now, this is kind of interesting. We're beginning this paragraph with the phrase on balance, which means when we look at things from all different sides evenly, as if to balance a scale. So on balance, to look at it objectively, the acts seek to provide effective control over these treatments to make sure that they are safe and that they are moral or ethical, you could also say. So if you ensure something, you just make sure it's the case. You guarantee that it is the case. And we're doing this in order to make sure that these treatments are safe and they are ethical or moral, which means we're doing the right thing.
However, a number of questions remain about how specific requirements of the acts will be enforced in practice. Yeah, that's always an issue. You can write the best law in the world, but will it work out there in the real world in the way that you want it to? So there are a number of questions, several, maybe even many questions, all right? So it's more than just a few. There's a good number of questions remain or still around, still hanging about in the air, people are wondering about. And what are they wondering? They're wondering about how specific requirements of the acts will be enforced in practice. It's great to write the law, but will it be useful? Will it be practical in the real world? So when something is enforced in practice, that basically means here we are actually using the law. You can have the best law in the world, world, but if it requires some superhuman policeman to actually make the law effective, then it's not going to be an effective law. If it's easy for companies to get around this, to change their advertising material so it doesn't talk about regenerative medicine, will that allow them to still use that medicine? People can be tricky, in other words, so you can write this great law, but you're going to have to actually see how people address it and how people try to violate the law in the real world.
Right, and of course, we're talking about enforcing things. To enforce just means to make sure that people observe or comply with a law or regulation or rule. So, of course, sometimes it's very difficult to enforce traffic laws because there are just so few policemen and so many cars out there. And yes, indeed, this is all having to do with regenerative medicine, and hopefully we won't have to face a situation like this in which we will require some sort of treatment like this, but if we do, hopefully these laws will help us out in that regard. Okay, that brings us to the end of our discussion for today. It's time now for Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第一部分提到再生医疗法和再生医疗制剂管理条例这两项法案为再生医疗的发展和使用制定了一套全面的规则。文中它用到 comprehensive 这个形容词来描述全面的、综合性的或者是详尽的。那它是来自动词 comprehend。 我们来学习它的字首字根。好，看到 PRIS、PREHEND 或者是可能拼作 PRE 这一类的字根呢，它有 seize、grasp 或者是 hold 的那种意思，就是表达抓紧啊、抓住。像 prison 监狱就可以看出这个字根的语义了。那么在 comprehend 这个字当中，它的字首 com 表示完全，那么字根 prehend 这部分表示抓紧、抓住。那其实这个 prehend 这个部分在拉丁文当中，它带有那种用心思、用意志捕捉的隐喻，多半就带有那种领悟啊、理解的意思。所以我们去想完全抓住某事物，应该就可以联想到 comprehend 它表示理解、领悟的意思。顺便补充两个这一类字根的单字。第一个补充的是 comprise， 它的字首 com 表示一起、完全，那字根 prise 这部分表示紧握，完全紧握抓住某事物，那就意味着这个东西是你拥有的。用这个方式也许就可以联想到 comprise 它有那个包括的意思。再来第二个补充呢是 apprehend， 它的字首 ap 是来自 ad 表示朝向，那后面加了这个 prehend 它是抓住的意思，那朝向某个人把它抓住，应该可以联想到 apprehend 它有逮捕的意思，那这是比较正式的用字，通常是用来表达警方逮捕罪犯、嫌疑犯。那我们前面其实有提到 prehend 它多半会带有这种领悟、理解的意思，所以其实 apprehend 它也有察觉、理解的意思，只是这个用法比较少见了。那字典上也有注明这样的用法是属于 old-fashioned。 好，那我们课文第三部分的最后一句提到关于如何在实践中执行该法案的具体要求仍存有一些问题，文中是用 a number of questions 去表达一些问题。那这边我们就介绍一下 a number of 它是表达几个若干，意思就跟 several 或者是 some 相近，它是用来修饰可数名词的量，像是 a number of factors 几项因素， a number of journalists 几位记者等等。那如果是用来修饰不可数名词的量，像时间啊、金钱啊、水等等，这时候我们通常会用到 an amount of。 那么 amount 和 number 的前方你还可以加入形容词，像 high、large、great 等等，去表达大量的什么什么，或者是加入 small 去表达少数少量的什么。举例来说 a large number of tourists 就是大量的观光客， a small number of students 少数的学生， a large amount of money 就是大量的金钱， a small amount of information 就是少量的资讯。好，那以上是今天的重点整理，我们回顾今天的单字吧。
Restore. Mr. and Mrs. White have worked hard to restore the old house to its original condition. Exception. There are some exceptions to the library's rules about being quiet. Option. Evan is considering his options for language courses. Ban. The government will ban the use of plastic bags starting next year. Facility. My university's sports facilities include a gym and a swimming pool. Ensure. We should try to ensure that everyone has a good time during the trip. Enforce. In this town, the police enforce the traffic laws quite strictly.
Discussion starter starts now.
Here's our discussion starter. The question is, do you agree that untested treatments should be available if there are no other alternatives? Why or why not?
Well, I would say given that the medicine has passed the basic safety trials, I agree that untested treatment should be available to people facing death or no other better option. After all, a lot of the drugs are being tested on humans anyways, and if the drug can be tested on someone and possibly save their life when they have no other options, I say why not?
Well, I don't agree that untested treatments should be available since there's a possibility that the treatment may cause the patient severe pain and they will die in agony before they were going to die anyway. So it's probably going to make this situation even worse. So yeah, I would not advise using these kinds of drugs on people, even if they are untested.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Mike.
I am Roger. See you next time.